There are approximately 900 military bases that the United States operates all over the globe. How many military bases does China operate across the globe? Sri Lanka went into debt crisis, and Wall Street Journal blamed China for it. But then you can look at the data. The data shows you that 90% of Sri Lanka's debt is to European countries and Western countries, not to China. They're not giving IMF kind of loans. That's a very important distinction that people don't realize. Tomorrow China could become imperialist or could impose its will on us. Well, tomorrow when it happens, then we'll deal with it. I mean, it's not happening right now.
Hello and welcome to New Wave History. This is Ali Warsi, and today I have a very distinguished guest with me, Dr. Taimur Rahman. So thank you very much for coming. Dr. Taimur Rahman is an associate professor of political science at Lahore University of Management Sciences, LUMS. He's a singer, the lead vocalist of Lal the Band, as we all know. He is also a political activist. He leads the Mazdoor Kisan Party in Pakistan, and above all, he's a Marxist thinker. The reason why I invited him today is that we often see China is as a leading power in the world. It is poised to become a global superpower, and many fear that China is going to replace America as the major exploitative force in the third world. Dr. Saab, thank you very much for coming. Do you think China is the new empire? Do you think it is an imperialist power that is going to replace the United States as the sole superpower of the world, but it is not going to be a leader of the world that takes it in the right direction, but instead it will exploit the resources of the global south, which it is projecting itself as the leader of? What do you think about that?
Firstly, I mean, liberalism itself ought to be criticized in this regard because, I mean, I think you know that European liberals were always very much part of a colonial project. They themselves were part of an empire-building project, and consciously so, not unconsciously or not by accident or anything of that sort. James Mill, John Stuart Mill themselves were part of the British East India Company, and many others supported. John Locke supported a company of slavers in Virginia, right? So. And also, liberals were also not the most democratic within Europe. This may also come as a surprise to Pakistani liberals, but if you pick up the history of Europe, what you discover is that actually the radical party in European politics were the Republicans. I don't mean the US part, the Republican Party. I mean the Republicans, the French Republicans were the most radical. And the liberals, in fact, like Edmund Burke, etc., were reacting to the Republicans and were conservatives. Liberalism in the European context, certainly in connection to the Republican strand of thought, was a conservative strand of thought. It was not a radical strand of thought by any stretch of the imagination. So for both these reasons, I think the first thing would be to criticize liberalism. And also liberalism very much was centered on the idea of private property as being the expression of freedom. And that, of course, was brutally criticized by Karl Marx, who pointed out that, 1% have private property and the rest are deprived of it. What kind of freedom do they then have? None. Liberalism was very comfortable then within Europe till the 1920s by not giving women the right to vote. It was actually the socialist revolution in Russia which gave women the right to vote, gave workers the right to vote, and as a consequence of which, then Europe also began to give women the right to vote. Liberalism was perfectly comfortable with that. So that's also part of history. Now liberalism says, no, that, we are in favor of women's rights, but that was not historically the case. Historically, it was the case that it was the left that was leading the charge in relation to this. And there are many other factors of this sort as well. So finally, as far as human rights is concerned, let's start with that. Liberalism also sadly seems to ignore the fact that the right to life and the right to have employment, the right to be able to live with food, clothing, shelter is something that liberals completely relegate to secondary status. I mean, it's there in their publication somewhere. There's no doubt about that. But when they assess states, it's nowhere near. The first thing that they look at is, okay, does this country have what they call a free press? What do they mean by a free press? They mean whether the press is controlled by capitalists. Now, for example, the United States of America is considered to have a free press, right? You and I would say, yes, they have a free press. But 6 corporations control 90% of the media. Everybody knows this. It's not a secret. How can you call it a free press? But everybody calls it a free press. They know this fact. And still they say, yes, we know this is a problem, but it's still a free press. How is it a free press? It's basically a capitalist press, right? It's the same with the Murdoch and the Sun newspaper and, pretty much across Europe you can see. And by the way, this is the reason for the rise of the religious right, is because the media is so completely dominated by right-wing forces and neoliberal forces, etc. So they're completely comfortable with all of that. But they're not also comfortable with the entire, then during the entire period of national liberation struggles, what was the point of view of the liberals? Were they with empire or were they against empire? You can see that
generally they were pro-empire. But the thing is that the reason why people criticize China for is that if you're replacing your people who want, people like you who think China as China is the new global leader, or at least the leader of the global South.
We have not made any such claim.
But
I have not made any such claim that they're the leader of the global South.
But they are opposing the current system, the current global order that is dominated by the West, dominated by the Americans. And when we say that they don't have they don't have proper democracy, or what we call multi-party democracy.
Uska kya fayda hai? Look at multi-party democracy. Look at what it is generating in Europe and in America. It's generating Trump. It's generating Golden Dawn. It's generating Le Pen.
But it is also generating a Zohran Mamdani, for example.
Yeah, that's the exception rather than the rule, isn't it? It's the exception that proves the rule. The exception always proves the rule.
Yeah, but there are senators like Ilhan Omar and other people who are doing...
what do they say? A single swallow does not a spring make. You see? So exceptions do not prove the rule. Look at the overall trend. Basically, what's happened with liberal democracy is that it leaves the door open for money to control political parties. That is the bottom line. Right now, what we see, not just in Europe, we see it in India, we see it in Pakistan, we see it across the world, wherever we have tried to implement what we call liberal democracy. The result has been that money has come to control those political parties. There is complete elite capture. We talk about it all the time. And how did that happen? How does a political ideology that claims to stand for freedom and individual freedom and so on and so forth end up with a political system? And we're following that ideology, and we still end up with a political system which is basically a plutocracy. It's a system controlled by the rich, for the rich, by the rich, and of the rich. So where's the democracy?
But is there democracy in China? I mean, what are we replacing America with?
China is not a model which China does not itself say that we are a model that everybody should follow. Unlike the liberals who say, we are a model everybody should follow. China's not saying that. China is saying our setup is specific to our conditions. We have created a revolution in 1949. We have set up this system. That system was not created out of somebody's, how was it created? Let's examine that. It was created out of a revolution. It was created out of a long process of a revolution that started in the early 20th century. And started with a nationalist uprising and then went through several phases, 1911, 1919, 1927, the Long March, and then finally culminating in 1949 in the political system that they have.
Yes.
And it is because of that political system, the system that they have now come out of what they used to call a century of humiliation. They are the only third world country, the only country that was colonized by European empires that can now claim that they have actually thrown off the legacy of neocolonialism. How many countries can you point out that have done that? Can you point out 3 countries that have done that?
I don't think so.
No, you cannot. There's only one country that can claim that with any degree of legitimacy, and that's the People's Republic of China. So for me, I'd say that's a bloody success story. Yaar. 300 saal se we've been under colonial domination and then later neo-colonial domination. We haven't managed to throw that off yet. They've thrown it off, but we're criticizing them, and maybe we should also learn from them. And they're not imposing their model on anybody. They're not saying, you should be like the Chinese, you should have one party, that will be the Communist Party of Pakistan, that's it. No. Have they interfered in your political system? No. Have they said to you, you have to have this economic policy? No. When have they said that? Never. Yes, they'll say, okay, we're making this investment, we would like our people to be safe, we don't want our people killed, we're coming here to work for you, etc., etc. But have they dictated to Pakistan that Pakistan needs to have XYZ economic policy? No. Who is dictating to us? The IMF.
But maybe they're not in a position to do that yet. For example...
Thank you for saying that. Good. Yeah, they're not in a position to do that, then they have no desire to do that.
Yet. But the thing is, for example...
They haven't tried. They haven't tried. You yourself are saying that they are now a superpower, right? You accept that? they're a major state.
It's a huge power.
It's a huge power.
Yeah.
What is a country like Sri Lanka in front of them? Or what is an economy like Pakistan in front of China? It's nothing, right? It's a very tiny country. It's a very small country or a very small economy in relation to the People's Republic of China. Correct? They're not trying to impose their will on us.
Well, they haven't, but the thing is...
They might! Oh my God, we should be afraid of them now because of something they might do in the future.
But they,
listen to this. No, wait. Listen,
Yeah.
this is such speculative BS. How can you? I mean, I could say
it's not just speculative.
Speculative
For example,
because
if they
it
are
hasn't
creating
happened.
dependencies, if they are creating dependencies through people say, for example, I saw a report in Wall
But
Street
these
Journal
countries are not dependent on
some
China.
7-8 years ago.
No, it's not true. They're not dependent on China. I mean, take for example Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka went into debt crisis, and a Wall Street Journal blamed China for it. But then you can look at the data. The data shows you that 90% of Sri Lanka's debt is to European countries and Western countries, not to China. Only 10% of the debt was to China. And then China restructured that debt. And China's debt is mainly project-based.
Right.
Ye bahut important baat, which people often neglect. China makes a few loans now. They've started making a few such loans, etc. But mainly, the money that they give is always project-based. So they get it out of their project. They're not giving IMF kind of loans. That's a very important distinction that people don't realize.
And what about Pakistan's loans? I mean, some people would say that...
Again, project-based. They're project-based loans. They're not loans that are given to the government in the same way that the government gets IMF loans or gets loans from the Asian Development Bank and then goes to commercial banks to get loans. Those are not the kind of loans that we get from China. The kind of loans we get from China are, okay, we're going to do this project. For this particular project, we're going to finance it this particular way. And we expect that in 10 years, 20 years' time, we're going to make back this much money and that will pay back for this loan. That is a very different thing from this kind of loan where they say, here, government of Pakistan, we're going to give you $3 billion. Now you have to privatize PIA. बहुत जमीन आसमान का फर्क है दोनों चीजों में. Big difference between the two things. And I mean, okay, you make the argument that tomorrow China could become imperialist or could impose its will on us. Well, tomorrow when it happens, then we'll deal with it. I mean, it's not happening right now, right? So what is happening right now is the fact that the entire third world is basically back in a period of neocolonialism. So here we are worrying about what will happen, what China will do in the future, and not looking at what's happening to us right now. But there's not going to be a future if we don't fix what's going on right now. I mean, let's think about it rationally, logically. Okay, we are so afraid of them. Who's creating this fear? They haven't done anything, and we're saying, no, they might. And the people who have done, what is ruining our countries, we're just saying, you always live with this, so what's the problem?
Yeah, but the thing is, what can Pakistan, for example, learn from China? As you just mentioned that the Chinese model is just, and even they claim that
the third world itself can learn a lot of things from China. First thing is land reforms. If you really think about what created China's economic miracle, the first thing is that they got rid of feudalism. This is the largest anti-feudal revolution, that the world has witnessed in the 20th century, in terms of scale, in terms of size. China was dominated by the Mandarin class and by the feudal lords for 1,000 years. And after 49, they completely transformed that entire system. Look at the results. So we keep talking about, oh yes, Pakistan is so feudal and all the parties are feudal, but we're not going to do anything about it, are we? So that's the first thing that China did, was that they changed the entire landed structure.
Give me 3 things that Pakistan can learn from. One thing.
That's the first thing.
Okay.
The second thing is education for everyone, right? So China, right in the 50s, started this idea that we're just going to educate everybody. There's not going to be any literacy anymore. The third thing was, they said, we're going to go barefoot to the villages and solve health problems. That was called the Barefoot Doctor Scheme. We're going to get healthcare to everybody. Every citizen we're going to get healthcare to. Then the next thing, of course, was that there's a land reform, there's healthcare, there's changes in education. And then, of course, there's the fact that China said we're going to lift people out of poverty. We're going to have common prosperity. That's going to deepen the market. We're not going to have, they've lifted 850 million people out of poverty. That's bigger than countries, yeah. 850 million people out of, it's remarkable. So, those are I'd say those are the 4 things we should learn. Number 1, land reforms. Number 2, education and healthcare for, number 2 and 3, education and healthcare for everyone. And number 4, you got to work to lift people out of poverty.
But the liberal criticism of this model is that basically China embraced capitalism. It's not a socialist country anymore.
And mixed economy.
I know it's a cliche. I know, but can you address that?
They have a mixed economy. They don't have what's called a purely capitalist free market economy, and they don't have what's called a purely socialist economy. They have a mixed economy. Let's be clear on that. But the mixed economy is dominated by the state, and the state is dominated by the Communist Party, and the Communist Party is a party of the left and that believes in socialism, and so they direct the market in the direction that they want it to go in. So the commanding heights of the economy in China, even today, are controlled really by the state. For example, finance is completely dominated by the state.
Right.
They have the People's Bank of China, and under the People's Bank of China, they have the Sovereign Wealth Fund of the state, and then they have the Ministry of Finance. And then the banks, also state-owned, come under all of these ministries as well as the People's Bank, etc. So they can direct credit any which way they want, which is why Chinese are never short of financing for their projects. We are, because their financing doesn't work privately. Their financing, they have public finance. And that's a huge, huge benefit to them. So the Chinese have a problem that they actually they have shortage of labor in China. Labor, the price of labor, the wage rate is going up in China because they say we have a shortage of labor in China, and there are 1.4 billion people.
Yes.
And we have an excess of labor in Pakistan and people are leaving the country and saying, please give us a visa so we can go abroad and work, whatever. So why? We have, 240 million and we have tremendous unemployment. So what's going on? What's going on is that they don't actually embrace the kind of capitalism that we have. They have a socialist structure, and they have certain sectors in the economy where they have allowed capitalism to operate within the framework of a larger socialist state.
Right. So the biggest criticism in Pakistan that comes for China is not probably from the middle classes, because we are probably mostly happy with their role in Pakistan's economy, Pakistan's politics, and Pakistan's diplomatic relations with the other countries as well, not just China, because they help us. It doesn't come from liberals, because even if it does come from liberals, because liberals, they're insignificant in because of their...
No, I don't. They may be small, but they're important.
Yeah. But the thing is that the biggest criticism comes from the ethno-nationalists, for example,
right.
in Balochistan, and to an extent from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
Not in KP, but mainly in
Balochistan. But
KP, I've spoken to people. They're actually they have the opposite view to the people in Balochistan. They're like, we want China here. We want investment here, etc.
Right. So how do you alleviate the fears of the people who think that China is the empire, they want Balochistan to be integrated more into Pakistan's state system, etc.?
This is just a reflex. This is the reflex of the fact that the ethno-nationalists, of course, have been opposed to the state. The state has been killing them. They've been fighting against the state, etc., etc. So when the Chinese come to Pakistan guarded by the state that they have been fighting, then, of course, they view the Chinese investment also as being part of a state-directed program.
Right.
And I don't blame them for thinking in that particular way. But consider the fact that if whatever investment comes into Pakistan, whether it comes from a socialist state, whether it comes from a capitalist state, whether it comes from Iran or India or any place else, is always going to come via the state. There can never be investment in any country, given the way in which national sovereignty works, that the state is not approved of. That's not possible.
Yeah. State
has to approve of it, right? And state has to guard it as well. And state has to, make sure that it's regulated and all of those things. So even if let's say China was purely socialist and they were still planning on creating these links between Asia, and they would therefore have to work within Pakistan, they would have to work with the state.
Right.
And those who are opposed to the state may not be able to differentiate the two and may say, ye to ek hi. And that's what happened. But an examination of whether China is or isn't imperialist ought not to be a reflex of examining the Pakistani state, then saying कि ये इनके साथ है तो फिर ये भी नहीं है, but really of examining the class structure and the political economy of China itself. That's what it should really be based on, right? That would be the right way to examine it.
But right now we're saying that they are actually being attacked in Pakistan. Their engineers have been attacked, their workers have been attacked, their consulates have been attacked in Karachi, and even and some people might say that, for example, fishermen in Gwadar would say that because of their tractors and the machinery that they brought, we don't have enough fish to fish. So because we are a backward society and we do not have the kind of, we are not mechanized enough, we are not industrialized enough. Do you think it's a threat to our labor, our workforce, our working class?
What is a threat to our labor and workforce is the economic system of Pakistan. Anything that comes from outside into Pakistan will come through the state and will be refracted by the class structure and by the political economy of Pakistan itself. You change Pakistan, okay? Let's say you change the class structure of Pakistan, you change the political, you change the way Pakistan functions, then you can even deal with capitalist and imperialist states in a way that will not hurt you, as China has done, as Vietnam is also doing. Now take Vietnam, for example. Vietnam also gets investment from the United States of America. Vietnam sells to America, the same America that bombed the, the country into the Stone Age. But now they deal with America, right? But how are they able to do that? They're growing. They're growing at 7%. They're probably going faster than China, by the way. They are one of the fastest growing Asian countries in the world. And I've been to Vietnam, I've been to China. It's remarkable to see what they're experiencing. It's really phenomenal. But we don't talk about Vietnam. We always talk about China. But China and Vietnam have the same model. They both deal with the West. And they both are able to deal with the West and are able to deal with these imperialist countries. Yet they deal with them in such a way that they benefit. Why? Because they have strong states. They have strong united states that are able to utilize whatever cracks and fissures exist in the global political economy, and they're able to utilize them in favor of their national development. And what do we do in comparison is कि हम तो चादर बिछा देते हैं, कहते हैं ये here's what we have to sell, come and buy whatever you want. We are not negotiating in a way, or we're not able to really negotiate with international capital in such a way that it would benefit our national development, because we have a comprador ruling class. That is what does not exist in China or in Vietnam. They have a ruling elite or a ruling class or a ruling party which is seriously interested in their own national development. And you can see the results. Or you can compare the results between countries like Pakistan and countries like Vietnam. You can see it's a big difference.
Correct. And the message that you would give to Pakistan or the people of Pakistan is that the biggest problem that we face is probably not even America or China.
We have
to fix ourselves.
You have to fix your own country. I can't fix America. I can't fix China. I'm not interested in fixing China. I don't even understand their language. I'm not interested in fixing France or UK or Russia or whatever. I can examine them. I can analyze them. I can understand what makes them tick. I can understand what the contradictions are, etc. But at the end of the day, the only country you can really fix is Pakistan. And if you fix Pakistan, then you can deal with China, America, you can deal with Russia or France or England in a way that benefits you. Because you will then be able to say, okay, yes, we want this, but that we don't want. No, we will take this, but we will take it on these terms and conditions. You are able to dictate the terms and conditions, through which you are ready to deal with other countries.
Only when you understand your own resources and you are able to exploit them and
look, my friend,
utilize them.
Yeah, take for example, I can't change you, right? I can't change you. You have to decide to change yourself. You have your own mind. But I can change my behavior towards you. That's what psychologists always explain, right? And that's what matters to me. So in the same way, Pakistan cannot change China, but Pakistan can, or the US, or IMF. We can't change IMF. But we can change ourselves in such a way that then we can deal with these international institutions, whether it's the World Bank or the IMF or China or America or Asian Development Bank or WTO, whatever the hell it is, right? We can deal with that in such a way that we are able to say, this is our position, these are our interests, this is what we need, this may be your interest, but this is not our interest. So we're not going to do this, but we will do this. We will do the things that are mutually beneficial. We will not do the things that are hurtful and harmful to us.
Right. Thank you, Dr. For this incisive analysis. And I hope that the people who are listening would have learned a lot from this conversation. I try to put some very basic questions that came to my mind that are regularly discussed.
एक आपको और fact बताना चाहता हूँ. Just by the by, when people say China is an imperialist country, they most often look at these things. Okay, they made project, they put this project here, it went into debt, right? Projects can go into debt.
Yeah.
And they can be very complex and many different reasons why that happens. But here's another question. How many bases, military bases, does the United States of America and its allies, NATO, etc., how many bases does the US have around the world? Can you give me the answer?
I don't know. I know that there are more than 22 in the Middle East alone.
There are approximately 900 military bases that the United States operates all over the globe. 900.
Yes.
How many military bases does China operate across the globe?
I think not more than 10 outside of China.
One.
Yeah.
Only one.
It has been developed.
It's in only
recently.
Djibouti.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah.
There is only one military base of China, and that's in Djibouti, and that's for different reasons. No other military base. Think about that when next time you say China is the imperialist country. Right? On one side, you have a country with 900 bases across the world. You have a military alliance like NATO, which the world and history has never seen. On the other hand, you have a country strongly armed, well armed, right? It's a strong state, a strong economy, but there's no force projection. You don't see it. You don't see them building military bases across the world. It doesn't exist. So that's what we have to think about when next time we say, oh, China is the imperialist country. Look, the actual imperialist powers are the ones that have existed now for at least 200-300 years. And those have been Britain, France, we know. They had colonial empires. The US took up where these colonial empires went off after the Second World War. There was Belgium, of course, which is a huge empire. There was Germany. They had their empire. Japan had an empire.
Yes.
These are the empires that we have seen in history.
So, I think I've come to the conclude. We have to conclude this.
Yeah.
But the thing that comes to my mind is that there are certain aspects in Chinese way of dealing with the world.
Yeah.
That, where is it that China is failing to answer these questions that you just answered, for example? Do you think that they don't have is it a language
They
barrier?
haven't been interested. Seedhi baat. Like the United States of America, Britain, France, etc., they have what we call soft power. They project their ideology across the globe. Okay, France does it in Francophile, across North Africa. Francophile countries are totally under French cultural hegemony, domination, etc. Britain and the United States, through the English language and through their educational system and their publishing, printing, and media, have a projection across the globe, the largest projection you can see. China's never really been. China was a third world country till recently. They weren't even interested in all of this. They were not interested in, okay, everybody should know what the most famous Chinese pop star is. Do you know? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, nobody knows, right? Because they're not interested in that. Because they're very self-contained, actually. They're interested in their own country. They're fixing their own country. They've been They've been a bit nationalistic, you would say. Perhaps even very nationalistic, you would say. In this sense, they've been very inwardly focused. Since the 80s, how many wars has China fought outside of its border?
None.
None.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. The correct answer is 0. From 1980 till the last 45 years, they haven't fought a single war.
Yes, they haven't.
So we could calling them imperialist. But they're not the ones doing all the fighting, etc. They have a strong army. They're like it's for our defense, etc. But they haven't fought any wars. The last war they fought was with Vietnam.
Yes.
In 78, 79.
Yes.
Right? So and before that was Korea, and they had a short war with India as well. But since the 80s, they haven't fought any war. Half century guzar gayi hai. Ek bhi jang nahi ki unhone. So they're not the aggressive power here. They're quite self-contained. Right? There may be trouble. There may be problems with them. They may be overfish in some areas, or they may have investments in some areas that go into the red. And then all these things are things that happen with everywhere in the world. Right? They have their own political system. You may not like it, but who cares? This phobia that is being built up. Actually, what's really happening is that the United States has felt for some time now that it's losing its market share to the People's Republic of China. And that's why they've imposed those tariffs, etc. And there's been a trade war between the US and China. And for that reason, they've been ramping up the propaganda against the People's Republic of China that this is an imperialist power. So we don't need to get involved. It's not my problem. Right? That's their problem, right? They have a trade war with them. They can do their trade war. I'm not interested in being a foot soldier for the trade war of American capital. That's what we're becoming. Not interested in that, right? So I will deal with China as China deals with us, right? And that may have its positives and negatives. It's not all going to be all roses and honey. It's not going to be all thorns and nails either. It's going to be like a relationship. Relationships, things go wrong. Sometimes things happen that are great. Sometimes things happen that are not so great. That's what politics. That's what real life is like, right? But is it an imperialist power? No, because it's not marching its armies across the border, unlike the United States and NATO. It's not deliberately trying to put people into debt traps. Sometimes there are projects that go into debt. It's not telling me to impose their system on other countries. Have you ever heard, there's this regime change happened and China was behind it? Nobody even hears that. Nobody even suspects it. Nobody even, as a conspiracy theorists, don't even say, who could be behind this? It could be China. Nobody says that because they're not. They're not dictating to you your economic policy. They're not dictating to you your political system. They're not marching their troops across your border. So what's the problem?
The problem probably is, as you just mentioned, that America is losing its market share with the Chinese, and therefore there is this propaganda campaign that has been going on for quite some time now.
Yes.
And
I'll give you another example. Sorry, I talk a lot. Look. I mean, when they wanted to invade Iraq, right? They made this big hula bala about the fact that they have weapons of mass destruction.
Yes.
They didn't find anything. Everybody got so emotional. Oh, Saddam has to go. He's the worst thing since Hitler. We got so emotional because of the media. They whipped up this fury and they destroyed that state.
Yes.
Yes? This did the same thing in Libya. There's civil war still going on. Now they're doing the same thing with Venezuela. What do they want in Venezuela? Come on, yaar. It's oil. Everybody understands it. So what do they want with China? Democracy? Please. What they want with China is that they want to cut it down to size. You see, they don't want any competitors. Now, I'm not interested in being a foot soldier for American capital.
So that's the bottom line, and let's hope that people must have learned something, and this has to be an ongoing discussion with Dr. Saab, with other people, so that we can learn more about China, because it is a partner that we have for the last many years. We are going to celebrate 75 years of our diplomatic relationship with China this year in 2026. So we have to learn more about China. We have to understand the country that we are going to be dealing with more in this century than we had to deal with them in the last one, the 75 years that we are now celebrating. So thank you, Dr. Saab.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening. This is me, Ali Warsi, signing off from New Wave History for now. Thank you.